welcome everybody here. Today I'm going to show you how to do basic porting. For the most part, I'm talking just about cleaning up the trash that's left over from casting in these here, and there's plenty of trash here. Basically, you clean out the trash that's in there, you're going to get a much better performing engine as a result. So I am not standing here as an expert declaring that I can get 70 miles an hour off of one of these here. I understand there's a lot of just experts out there that'll get a bike going 70 miles an hour in reverse, okay? If you don't have any positive comments to add, keep them to yourself, okay? This is just a basic primer on porting, okay? So you have to know how to pull the cylinder, okay? Check the link down below. I'll show you how you pull your cylinder and do all of that. But once you have your cylinder pulled here, let's go over what a cylinder is and the components of the aspects, different parts of the cylinder here, okay? Well, this great big ass hole here is where the piston goes up and down, right? Okay, here we have the big port here. This is your exhaust port. Now the exhaust port, looking at it, is higher than the intake port, okay? As well, the exhaust port takes a jog off to the left, okay? Looking at it from behind, jogs off to the left. Your intake port goes in and goes down. Looking at it here from the top, you can see that the intake port is the lowest port there, okay? Then let's look underneath here, and here you can see the transfer ports, okay? So what's going on is your piston, the spark plug sparks, you have the piston all the way at the top, you have the air-fuel mixture compressed. You get the spark, it pushes the piston down. That's the power aspect of the stroke there. The first port that opens up is the exhaust. As that opens up, then exhaust gases will start to go out, okay? While that piston is traveling down, it creates pressure in the crankcase, and that forces fuel, your air-fuel mixture, to go in your transfer ports. And then as the piston gets down just a little bit further, you're gonna have the air-fuel mixture coming in on the right and left side of your transfer ports here into the cylinder, and that's gonna push air and fuel to the back of the cylinder and help exhaust gases go out. The nature of these engines are they're a little bit they're not very efficient, incredibly efficient. They're very simple motors. So you may get a little bit of fresh air fuel pushed out the exhaust. That's just the nature of the beast, okay? Then your piston goes down, and as your piston goes back up here and it's starting to compress it, your intake is opened, and you're sucking air in here, and the air goes down into the crankcase, charging and filling up the crankcase with your air-fuel mixture, and it repeats itself, okay? So, look at your engine as a pump, okay? A pump sucks something in, blows something out. You're sucking in an air-fuel mixture, you're blowing out the exhaust. It sucks it in, it compresses it, ignition, comes down, dumps the exhaust. Okay, so what we want to do with porting is increase the efficiency. The more air and fuel you get in, the more exhaust you get out, and it has to be balanced. The better your engine's going to run, the more performance you're going to get out of the engine. Now, you can only get so much. This is, to me, is one of the number one things you can do to improve your performance of these little motorized bikes. Once you get so far, you really need a balanced crank, but that's, to me, that's high-level stuff. I don't want to go that fast on my little motorized bike. I don't think it's safe, but that's another thing here. So, Porting 101. What do we do? Well, there's a lot of defects in these cylinders here from the casting. They have a mold. They pour the molten metal in. The molds get old. They start to wear out a little bit here, and you get metal in areas where you don't want it. In a lot of manufacturing environments, they have someone doing deburr. They go through and as well they clean the flashing, as it's called, off. Now let's take a look here. Let's look at the transfer port here. You can see the trash. Okay? You can look in and see the trash there. Now you've got basically the opening as it comes in, and then it widens up here. I'm talking just about this one area here where you can see a little bit shiny, and you can see it's irregular. Well, what we need to do is get in there and clean that out, okay? We're not going to change the shape or the location of the port where it meets the inside of the bore, just inside of the transfer port there. We're going to clean that out, okay? We're going to do that on both ports, both transfer ports, and as well you can look at it from the bottom and check your progress here on one part of it, okay? Now let's take a look at the exhaust port, okay? Now you can see there's a little ridge right here at the bottom. I can take my fingernail and feel it. That's where the chrome bore is as well, and that has a little bit of flashing. We're going to get rid of that on the bottom lip of this here as well. What we're going to do is we're going to widen the exhaust 1 millimeter on each side. So we're going to hog it out and open it up 1 millimeter on the right and on the left, and as well the exhaust, we're going to raise the exhaust 1 millimeter. So what we're going to do, we're going to grind away the top of it. We want it as even as we can. We want this opening to be uniform throughout. Then we're going to polish the exhaust port. We want that as smooth as possible so it's less restrictive and we can get the exhaust gases out. So now we've got the intake. Now the intake port, what we're going to do, we're going to widen it 1 millimeter on each side, and we're going to hog it out at the bottom and lower it. We're going to open it up 1 millimeter on the bottom. So the exhaust, we're going to open up the top. The intake, we're going to open it up at the bottom, and of course the right and left sides on both. That's all we've got to do, and you're going to notice a little decrease in low end performance here, but you're going to notice a definite increase in your mid-range and as well as upper. These motors can only go so fast, get so many RPMs, you run out of balls on these things here because of the balance factor. So you really want to get these things buzzing like 10,000 RPM and above. Well, you're going to need a balanced crank, and that's above my pay grade, and I don't really want to go that fast on these little bikes, so I don't get into that. So what tool are we going to use, or what tools are we going to use to do the porting? All right, so I have got my little handy dandy bench grinder here that has the Dremel attachment. We've got the flexible shaft here. I've got 3 bits that I'm going to use, okay? I have the cylinder. I do believe this is a carbide bit here. The shape of this allows me to get in and as well keep things uniform. I keep pressure on the cylinder aspect of this here. I can move it right and left, in and out and the like, and clean out the port. Then for the transfer ports, I'm going to use this little bitty bit here, carbide bit here with the ball end on it. And that ball end will allow me to get in there and clean off the flashing that's left over in the intake port. Then what we're going to do, we're going to polish the exhaust port. And this is a polishing bit here. It's got the shaft, and you've got like a little wood screw tip on the end, and then you've got this pad here Now you can spend a lot of time polishing this here. It depends upon how much time you got to spend. You can really get a nice mirror finish in there in your exhaust. Whatever time you want to put into it, you're going to be paid back with some results. So if you want to take a bit of time to do that, go right ahead. One other little tool that I like is this little vise here, and you can turn this thing 100 different ways, and you only have two hands here, so you need to hold on to the cylinder, hold it in place. That's what this is for. You want to use one hand for your Dremel tool, or your tool here, and then as well to make sure that this thing doesn't skip off. Now you're spinning 10,000 RPMs, or if you're not careful, you can catch a piece of metal and this thing goes skipping across, and you can gouge into your bore here on the inside of your cylinder, and well, you got a piece of trash. So you want to be real careful to do that. Now the intake and the exhaust are fairly forgiving in the way they're designed and the way you can access it. So how I'm going to get access to it. Now, I almost need a longer bit here. This bit here is about 2 inches long total, maybe 2 1/4 inches. I'm not going to push it all the way down into the tool. I'm just going to barely put it in there. And snug it up, and that's going to allow me to push it in and reach all the way into the bore, and that's all that I need with this particular tool here. With the cylinder bit that I've got here, like I said, it has this flat area here, and I'm going to let that ride along on the flat spot of my intake port. So to hog out the intake port here, I'm going to grind along the bottom, move it right to left here, and then as well the old in and out. Okay, you want to make sure to grind it off evenly. Take an even amount throughout the entire plane of the bottom of your intake port here, and then go inside here and get that lip off that you can feel as well. Bring it up to the top and only grind enough just to remove the lip that you can feel where the chrome bore kind of goes into the intake there. So, and then as well on the right and left side, we're going to remove 1 millimeter as well. The exhaust, same way. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing here is taking the tool and I'm just cleaning up the bottom. This is the exhaust port here, okay? I just want to get any of the roughness off, and I'm going to be pushing it in and out and go right to left to remove any material that's making it rough. And then what we want to do is the exhaust, we want to raise the roof on this bitch here, right? So we're going to be going in and out here, and we're going to work the tool all the way inside here. Now I'm just pushing it through so you can see the bit here, but we're going to make sure that we clean it all the way into the inside. And cool thing about this vise is I can move this thing any way I want once I figure out the secrets of it. Okay, so I've got the exhaust port done. Now we need to do the same for the intake port, and it's going to work the same way. But with the intake port, we need to hog out the bottom of it, so we're going to lower it 1 millimeter. Okay, so we've got the intake port done. Now we've got to get to the transfer ports. And the transfer ports are a little bit trickier. Now to get to the transfer port, we're going to use the smaller bit here. And if you can get a 3-inch long smaller bit, I recommend it. This here is just barely long enough to get in there. Now this is where you have to be more careful in getting your transfer ports so that it doesn't catch and skip and mess up the inside of the bore. So all I'm going to be able to do is just knock just that little bit off here. And you got to take your time. And clean that out. This will take time to do the transfer ports. Then, if you look inside your transfer port, you can barely see, right in here where my finger is, you can see there's another little lip in there. I wasn't able to show you every little aspect of it because it's hard for me to get my fat fingers in there and get the camera in there to see exactly what I'm doing. But hopefully I've given you the general idea. So now we've got all of the material ground away. We want to leave the intake rather rough, okay? So you want to make sure and even take your little bitty tool here and on the roof of the intake, kind of rough it up a little bit here. Just some little cross hatches. What that'll do is it helps the turbulence, having a rough finish on your intake, the turbulence helps atomize the fuel, keep the air-fuel mixture, keep it mixed up, keep it in more of an aerosol form. That way it combusts better, much smaller droplets. Now your exhaust, where are we at? What we want to do with the exhaust port is use your buffing tool, okay, your polishing tool. Go ahead, polish that out. Take as much time as you want to do it. You at least want to get it to where it doesn't feel too rough. Then what you're going to want to do, you need to get you at least some 320 grit wet dry sandpaper, and where the edge of your intake port and your exhaust port come into the cylinder wall, you want to go ahead and not, you don't want to scuff the inside of the wall here. Mainly just come in through the port itself and use your finger and deburr the edge there. If you can feel anything rough there, your piston ring might catch it and it would break your piston ring. So I will even take it here on the inside and just lightly rub, but I'm not pressing against the flat part of the bore. I'm pressing only against the inside of the opening there. Be sure and get all the way around the top, right and left side, and the bottom of both your intake and your exhaust port, and you should be good to go. When you put your intake gasket on, be sure and open it up, because if that intake has a super small opening on it, well, you've kind of wasted some of your work here. So we want to get that as open as we can and still allow for a good seal on your intake gasket. The same with the exhaust gasket. If we need to open that up a little bit here, your muffler, your exhaust, if that has any burrs or trash, the inlet of your exhaust, you want to go in and grind that out and use your Dremel tool, get that out as well. So we like I said, as much air fuel in as we can get, and as much as we can get exhaust as we can get, maximizes efficiency, maximizes your power. Now, be sure and clean your cylinder out real good before you put it on the bike. One little speck of this aluminum dust that's everywhere now will crater your engine, okay? So hit it with a water hose first. Water ain't gonna hurt this. Hit it with the water hose every opening. Make sure you get all of that stuff out. If you have an air compressor, hit it. Clean it out, dry it real good, slap this baby back on. Clean out your intake and your exhaust gasket as well, the intake to your, the inlet to your exhaust pipe. Make sure that's cleaned out good. You should be good to go. You're going to need to perform a plug chop after you do this here. Go easy. Remember, we're going to treat it like a new engine. Okay? I would recommend putting fresh rings on it as well. If I helped you out, give me a thumbs up. There's a subscribe button down there somewhere. I want to thank you for watching. Ride safe. Take care.